Good?
Yeah.
So when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about for this week's speech, I was reading some articles, and two articles caught my attention in particular. Both of them involved sex ed programs in Canadian school systems. Now, I believe sex ed, as awkward as it was, is extremely important to teach today's youngsters. So the first article I read was from the Globe and Mail, and it was about introducing an LGBTQ-friendly curriculum in BC to demarginalize certain groups. It talked about how in this day and age it isn't as straightforward as it used to be, and every person has a right to a sexual education that is inclusive of them. The aim of the curriculum would be to create a safe and secure environment for all students. So this curriculum would include lessons on sexual orientation, gender identity, and family diversity. I don't know if you guys know, but the suicide rate among LGBTQ kids is a lot higher than the rest of the population, and a lot of it has to do with they feel just so alone. So implementing changes like these would hopefully be able to spread acceptance and education and allow these kids to feel safe and secure at school. There's been a lot of support for this idea, but as always, there are many opposed, religious groups included. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, the next article I read was about how the Catholic school system also was proposing an alternate sex ed curriculum that would, among other things, not promote the idea of consent, saying that there are other factors to consider, such as morality, family, and wellness, when dealing with sex and marriage. In the article, Premier Rachel Notley was strongly against this proposal, saying it will never be approved and she will never support anything that opposes consent. Along with this, they would teach from a religious standpoint and would not include support of homosexual relations or gender identity differing from one's biological sex. They would also refuse to talk about contraceptives. It was mentioned in both articles that parents are allowed to pull their children from sex ed. It's their right. They have the right to do that if they don't agree with what is being taught. But I really do hope that they are at least teaching their kids at home about sex, because a lot of the time ignorance is not bliss, and they could be contributing to the detriment of their children's health. Now, regardless of religion, sexual orientation, or gender, we all live in the same world, and contraceptives and consent are the two things that everybody should be taught. The amount of misinformation about sex, about STDs, about pregnancy, about whether or not you can get pregnant or not, out there is huge. Like misinformation that can lead to people being in compromising situations simply because they didn't know any better. They weren't taught. Now, I went to a Christian school up until grade 8, and our version of sex ed was more about health in our bodies, which that was all fine and all, but there's no mention of sex in our sex ed. So that was definitely, it didn't benefit me or my classmates, because going into high school, we were more naive about sex, which put us at risk for believing any information out there. This is why I believe that a proper sexual education is highly important for the safety and health of teens, and people in general for that matter. And I believe that everyone has a right to it. So, in closing, good on the BC school system, and I hope that the rest of Canada can get on board with a curriculum that will ensure the safety and well-being of all of their kids.